California State Youth Ambassadors, Department of Education. Scene one.
Scene one. Ready to roll. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
How about you?
Action.
The issue about the critical shortage of counselors in public schools, we are clearly in a crisis situation. You're concerned about that, and that's why we're here. Oh, watch out.
On this side.
Please, everyone, have a seat. Thanks for coming up to Sacramento today.
So as California State Youth Ambassadors, we have collectively decided to concentrate on the critical shortage of counseling in California public schools. As a whole, we represent public, private, and parochial schools, and all find the extreme shortage of counselors in California a devastating issue. According to the National Association for College Admissions Counselors, the recommended average student-to-counsel ratio is 250 to 1. Right now, the national average is 450 to 1. California has the worst ratio with an average of 1,016 to 1. I'm a senior at LaSalle High School, a private parochial school. Yet even there, our counselors have a lack of training and development. And obviously it's even worse in the public schools, where counselors are overworked and lack training altogether. What is currently being done to ensure that counselors receive training and development so that those that are in place can do the most effective job for their students?
Well, in California, we're a local control state, as I'm sure all of you researched and have done this view. So there's very little that can be done directly from Sacramento to make sure that training happens the way it should. There are some great organizations with which we work to try to raise awareness of the need for better training and frankly to not be 51st in the nation in the number of counselors per student, which is just atrocious. Our schools have just beginning to come out of a huge fiscal crisis. $20 billion in cuts, dropped to 50th in the nation in per pupil spending. And so as schools cut back, they tended to cut counselors and cut aides and cut nurses. But one of the things that's really so inspiring and great about the work you're doing is a lot of these things in California, adding counselors back, bringing back the arts, civics, other programs that have been lost over the last few years is actually going to require students like you, parents, community leaders, being involved with the local control funding formula process, being involved with their school boards, and demanding it at the local level.
Research shows that while 80% of the United States, such as Florida, Connecticut, etc., have a comprehensive school counseling program, California and many others do not. Are there any steps the department has taken or is taking to change this? And is there a possibility for California to adopt a counseling program from the state that already contains a counseling program?
We have 1,043 school districts and over 10,000 schools. And the school districts range from a size of 3 students to 667,000 students. You can probably guess which one's got 667,000. Our friends in Los Angeles. What's the one-size-fits-all solution that can work for 1,043 school districts? And 40% of our school districts actually have 1,000 or fewer students in them. It's not every school district is urban, as some people might think. So chances of a statewide solution are usually rare because of that. And also in California, we're a mandate funding state. So if the state says we're going to have a comprehensive solution, and the state says every school is mandated to have counselors or anything, the state has to pay for that mandate.
Is it possible that you build a contract of some sort?
Department of Education, not
Department of Education builds a contract with smaller companies that provide services like Outreach Concern, have them coming to the schools in order to provide free counseling they would get the experience necessary.
Okay, you're on the right track in Copa.
State University, they're partnered with Apple and they give computers and all that type of stuff to them. But why not just have that for high school as well? Given the need for experienced counselors, is there any way to mandate a program where counselors in training are required to work on high school campuses as a part of their degree programs? This way, schools get the counselors get the experience, and no cost is involved.
Why would there be no cost involved? No cost to students, or?
No cost to schools.
Generally, programs that don't cost anything or don't cost a lot tend to be looked at more favorably across the street with the legislature and the governor. And certainly there may be ways. There's some conversations about adding service elements for teachers. I haven't seen so much for counselors or for classified employees, but where you can get some of your student loans forgiven for working in certain areas. So maybe there's something that can be done there.
I guess we can ask, how can we implement some sort of similar rubric, because it's put in place already by 3 other states, into our education system to further enhance the accountability of a counselor.
Let's turn that one around. I like where you're going, Maddie, but let's turn that one around. Let's ask, what is the department currently doing to assess accountability?
So our research has shown that several states that do have these comprehensive counseling programs, like Arizona and Indiana, also have rubrics to measure the accountability of school counselors. In California, what mechanisms are in place to measure the effectiveness of our school counselors?
To be honest, I'm not aware of any rubric to measure effectiveness. So people go at it from trying to find, other, high school graduation rates, college admission rates. So people look at other factors to try to get at some of this. But of course, when you're 51st in the nation and in the number of counselors, the 1,016 students per counselor, most of the counselors I talk to feel awful that they're not able to provide the type of support and assistance that they would like to be able to provide. So I'm not sure where that would fall on a rubric, because a lot of them are just trying to get through the day as well as they can with really awful circumstances based on the scarcity of counselors that we have.
Thank you.
The problem is that we don't have counselors. The reason why we don't have counselors is because of funding. So what do we do about that? The federal government has spent millions on a wasteful spending. And I also wanted to know if that is also happening here in California, and if there is a way that we can try to solve all of the spending that is going to something that we don't really use as much anymore. Just trying to
There, in any human institution, it's not going to work perfect. That's one thing we know about humans. So is there probably a little bit of waste in government spending? Are there things that may not be spent the way they should be? It's inevitable. I don't think that actually in California there's a lot, though, because of all the cuts that we've done. I mean, we've cut early childhood education. We've, of course, cut education. Those of you in our public schools, you've lived through what's happened, and you've seen things get cut. So you should always be vigilant. But, a lot of the waste that was in the system is gone.
I think it's important to talk about the fact that counselors aren't the only ones who should be accountable for this entire counseling process, because students should also be involved. So I think there should be a question about what programs are in place or what steps need to be taken to not only make sure that counselors know how important counseling is, but that students know how important counseling is. And I think we were talking about making it mandatory for students to meet with their counselors at least twice or something like that.
I was wondering if the California Department of Education is thinking of setting some sort of standard that requires maybe one or two meetings per semester with students and principals.
It gets back to those same mandate and local control issues. In order for us to require it, we'd have to pay for it, and the legislature's not paying for things like that. But you raise, I think, what's an important point, and it's something that I've been trying to talk about in leading up some of the superintendent's work on restoring arts education, civics education, STEM education. We've got a series of task forces that I've helped to coordinate. And when it comes to things like counselors and access to the arts and civics, our private schools are showing us every day what people with means think their children should have. And one of the questions that Superintendent Torlikson asks is, why isn't that the expectation for every California student, regardless of zip code? That's the conversation. We've got to stop the race to the bottom and start looking at what parents with means, and sometimes without means, are paying for should be an indication of what people feel is important.
Is there a current existing legislation at the federal or state level that could help us lower our surprisingly high student-to-counselor ratios?
Any bill like this right now would run into that gauntlet in the Appropriations Committee. Even if you got it out of the first Policy Committee, it would go to the Appropriations Committee. And anything, unless you have the governor's pre-approval or the president of the Senate or the Assembly Speaker's pre-approval, if you're costing more than $50,000, $75,000, you're still dying in the Appropriations Committee right now.
There's a senator who's doing something who passed a bill, or something like that at Anaheim or something.
Oh, Brown?
No. It was a Latino lady. Martinez? No.
Sanchez. From Cerritos, I believe.
Cerritos, there we
In
go.
fact, I think she's in your area, Robert.
Yes, Cerritos, Democrat.
Yeah.
Our research is derived from U.S. Representative Linda Sanchez's Put Counselors Where They're Needed Act of 2013, which indicates that other states have successfully applied for federal grants. From your perspective, how could California best position itself to take advantage of these funding opportunities, and what steps are the California Department of Education taking to increase our competitiveness for these grants? And also, do you know if we have recently applied for any of these grants or are in the process of applying?
We only have one person who manages our federal policy here at the Department of Education. And a lot of the work she does is on grant programs, so I suspect if we are aware of them and can qualify for them, we would be applying for them.
We need to write that question down. I don't know who's going to ask it.
Which right now, specifically?
Yeah. So our research has shown that there are many schools that have recently began to form partnerships with outside organizations. I don't have the specifics though.
Partner, for what purposes? To help provide human and financial resources. Human and financial resources.
Is the department currently aware of those relationships, and is there anything that they are doing to enhance, increase, or encourage these partnerships?
Take the awareness out and let's just go directly to the second part.
Research has yielded many inspiring examples of successful and independent public and private partnerships, collaborations between businesses, colleges, and community organizations working together to provide human as well as financial resources. Could you let us know what the department is doing to enhance, increase, or encourage these partnerships, specifically for the schools that lack funding to create these college counseling positions?
Mm-hmm. There are a couple of reasons why this type of work is important. One, our schools need the resources since we're 50th in the nation of per pupil spending, so you don't turn down resources. But only about 30% of California voters have a child in a California public school. We need to change the political will on the ground so that voters, parents, community leaders, business leaders are also fighting for these things. One of the things that's really effective are a group of students going into a school board meeting saying, you should be doing this and here's why. And that often really does start a good conversation in a local community.